Nearly 60 New Jersey landlords face fines of up to $10,000 for refusing to rent to tenants with criminal records. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over this law that they passed in New Jersey, which forbids landlords from discriminating, as they say, against tenants who happen to have criminal records. Now, this is a big deal to me because my personal belief is that landlords use the criminal history and background checks in order to do good tenant screening, and that way they can place the best tenants in their property and make sure that their other tenants don't have problems right next to them. But the state of New Jersey has actually taken away the landlord's ability to do this by implementing this new stupid law. And you know what? They put this law in place thinking, oh, well, you know what? This will help make it easier for these criminals, I guess, to find housing. And why would they want to do this? Well, you know, it goes back to the whole thing about how they assume that all people who are ethnic minorities have criminal records and therefore they would have problems finding housing because of their criminal history. Now, I think that's a stupid assumption. That's my personal belief. I believe that we shouldn't, make it easier for criminals to find housing or take away the landlord's ability to operate their business. But this state has done both, okay? They basically made it easier for criminals to get into a house and become a problem, right? So when I use my tenant screening, when I look at a background of a person, right, I look at the crime they were convicted of. I don't just look and say, oh, well, this person has a criminal history, so therefore I'm not going to rent to them. No, I will look at their history. And if it's something like, oh, this person had a DUI 5 years ago, I don't care. I don't care. That's not, a disqualifier, right? That is just fact. Maybe this person made a mistake and they've changed. And even on more serious criminal stuff, if it's old enough, then I'm still going to consider that a non-factor in most cases. But when you're talking about when I am truly looking at criminal history, I will look at stuff within the last few years. I will look at, minor arrests, major arrests, etc. It doesn't really matter what the arrest was for in a lot of cases. If I see a person who is constantly in and out of the jail, well, what does that tell you? When a person's in jail, they're not working. And when they're not working, they're not getting paid. And when they're not getting paid, they can't pay the rent. Okay, so if you're constantly in and out of jail, even for minor stuff, that's not a good thing. If you're in jail for things like theft, right? Why would I want to put a thief into my property? I wouldn't put a thief into my property. Somebody I know who has convictions for theft, okay? And that's not even talking about people who have violent offenses or, even talking about someone who has convictions for drug use or drug possession, right? Do I want those illegal substances in my property? Do I want that sort of criminal activity happening in my property? And the answer is no, I don't, okay? Now, that's just my personal belief. There are other landlords where this is not a disqualifying factor, but my opinion has always been that this should be left up to the individual, not the government. The government should not be dictating who we can and cannot rent a property to, within reason, of course, right? I don't believe in discriminating against a person based on, race, religion, etc. Okay? But when it comes to a criminal history, that is something that we should be allowed to discriminate based upon. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. Do you believe that landlords should have the ability to screen tenants based upon their criminal history? Okay, it's a pretty simple question. Now, since the majority of people here are landlords, I'm pretty sure they're going to agree with me. But, I've had a lot of tenants watching my videos lately, hate watching, I'm sure, but they've been telling me different opinions, right? And I have no problem hearing your opinion. But, bring some facts and logic and statistics with it. Make your argument strong, and then we can discuss that later on. Don't just talk with your emotions and what you feel or what you believe, because that doesn't mean anything. When I'm talking from my personal experience dealing with these people, right, who with these criminal histories, they do not always make good tenants, okay? And that is why I tend to weed them out of the application process. So anyway, let's get into this article and see what it says. This article is coming from northjersey.com, and it says, New Jersey warns 59 landlords over violating a law on housing rights for the formerly incarcerated. Yeah, I did a video on this law a long time ago, so it's been a while. The article has a few more details about the law that's now in place, and this will be a good refresher for that as well. So let's get into it. The New Jersey Attorney General warned nearly 60 housing providers on Friday that they were violating the year-old Fair Chance in Housing law, which aims to make it easier for people with criminal records to secure housing. Starting January 2022, New Jersey landlords can no longer ask people applying for apartments about their criminal history until after making a conditional offer. The law also prohibits property owners from publishing housing advertisements saying they will not consider applicants with criminal records. The state issued 59 notices of violation to providers in 40 municipalities across 16 counties: Atlantic, Bergen, Burlington, Camden, Cumberland, Essex, Gloucester, Hudson, Mercer, Middlesex, Monmouth, Morris, Ocean, Passaic, Sussex, and Union counties. So yeah, they're going after these landlords because that they're the easy targets. You know what? This is what bothers me about bureaucracies, right? They go after law-abiding people who are doing everything. You know what? And we don't even know that these landlords intentionally wanted to violate these laws, okay? For all we know, they didn't know about the new updated law. I mean, it's not like they send out new information every year, and not all landlords are super sophisticated, following the courts, following the new state laws that are passed, right? So hopefully they let these landlords have the opportunity to correct whatever they were doing was wrong, because it's very unfair when you pass a new law. You change the game, you change the rules of the game in the middle of the game, and you don't tell the players, hey, well, this is the new rule. That's what happens to landlords a lot of the times, and we get caught up in this nonsense, So let me continue. How they violated the law. The notices tell the landlords the Attorney General's office believes they are in violation of the law because they ask a discriminatory question on their applications or include words like no criminal records on the advertisements. Housing providers face a fine of up to $1,000 for the first offense, up to $5,000 for a second offense, and $10,000 for each time after. The office sent 30 similar notices last August. Criminal justice advocates had urged the Attorney General earlier in the year to enforce the law more aggressively, saying people leaving incarceration were continuing to face rejections despite the new protections. So yeah, it looks like they got the landlords because they put on their application, we're not going to take people with felony convictions or something like that, or they put that in the advertisement, right? So easy workaround for landlords would be to just not put that in your advertisements or not put that on your application. The problem is, though, that we use that as an initial weed out because we're not going to rent to those people. Now, they do say that until I believe it said in an earlier paragraph that you cannot ask about the criminal history until after making a conditional offer, right? So a landlord has to go through the entire process, screen the tenant and all that. And then at the very end, after you've made the offer of the apartment, you run their background and you find out, oh, you have a violent conviction, from just 2 years ago where you just got out of prison. That's you're putting the landlord in a bad situation where you're wasting their time. Okay, that's the one of the big problems, right? I don't like having my time wasted. I could have weeded this person out immediately, but no, the reason we put these blanket, limitations on our application is because we don't like wasting our time and we want to get the best tenant possible from the very get-go. And if we just tell these people, hey, we don't want you here, we will eliminate 90% of the problems. Now, there might be one or two good cases of people who have reformed for crimes committed very, very long time ago, but that is the minority in most of the time, right? And I just don't like this law. Now, as a landlord, I tell other people, right, don't ignore the laws in your state. You can get caught up. They can end up suing you. You can end up in so much trouble, right? It's not worth it. What I do suggest, though, is to get out of that state. Okay, get out of the place with these ridiculous laws. You don't have to invest there. Nobody says that you have to own property in New Jersey and be a landlord there. Okay, there are so many states in this country that don't have this ridiculous law, and places where you can be treated better with respect and have all of your property rights without having to deal with the bureaucracy of the government. And that's what I suggest to landlords. Okay, so I'm not going to finish this article right now. Just know that, hey, they are coming after landlords, who are not following the rules that they put in place with this ridiculous law. And that, in my opinion, tenant screening and making sure that we don't put bad tenants into our housing is one of the very best things that we can do to protect our investment.